Visit Avery.com, Avary, for the most up-to-date news and information on Team Avery.
Avery, 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 Avery,
This is the Gala Show. I'm your reporter on the beat, Gala Avery. On this episode, you may know my guest from his TV work for networks like A&E, WE, Viacom UK, and ID Discovery. Or maybe you'll recognize his name as the man who created the found footage genre with his cult favorites, the Mcpherson Tape and Alien Abduction Incident at Lake County. He's returning to the horror genre with his newest flick, The Last Podcast, which focuses on an ambitious podcaster who makes fun of those who believe in spirits. But when he meets a junior professor who says he can debunk it, his life gets turned upside down. Let's hope that does not happen on today's show. On the mic, I have filmmaker Dean Alioto. Hey, Dean.
Hey, Gala. How are you?
Good. As long as we don't have any spirits that show up or debunking spirits, I'm all good because I don't need to mess with any of that. So,
Well, we're close enough to Halloween, so who knows?
Who knows what's going to happen, but before we bring up the topic for today, I have a question for you. Actually, I was going to ask about drumming, weirdly enough, since I've actually interviewed a lot of directors who are drummers, which is, I feel like it's a weird through line. But my question actually comes from Matt Landsman, the manager of the Video Archives Microcinema inside of the Vista. He really loves the Mcpherson Tape. And so when I told him I was interviewing you, he wanted me to ask, how did you grassroots the spread of the Mcpherson Tape? And does it still exist on VHS? And lastly, do you think that it would still be as effective if it was made today with modern technology?
I'll try to do this in order.
Or not, just do them backwards.
Or just random. So how did I craft such a genius strategy to go out? Well, you have to be born with the genius that I have. Absolutely not.
Cheers to that.
I like to joke, and it's not much of a joke. I feel like the Forrest Gump in the found footage genre. I had dropped out of my second film school, USC was the second one. San Francisco State was the first one. Because I was too impatient to make movies. It was very expensive to make to go to college, especially at SC, and so I had to make my first film by 25 because that's what all my idols did, from Scorsese and everyone, and I think maybe your pop was involved.
Yeah, Quentin and Roger. Yeah. Definitely. I mean, I felt that pressure of the age 25 achieving so much from Quentin and Roger, and then when 25 came, I was like, okay, I can relax a little bit.
It's brutal, and its roots go back to Alexander the Great, who conquered everything at that age.
25, yeah.
Yeah, so no worries. And so I thought, all right, well, I don't have a pot to piss in. I've been doing these wedding videos with a buddy of mine, and we're using VHS cameras and doing this. This is 1988. And so I thought, I was reading the book, actually, Communion by Willie Strieber, and I thought, boy, it'd be really cool to do a movie that would encompass an abduction, but how do you experience it in an even closer way than regular narrative cinema? And so I thought, well, what if I did it from a cameraman's point of view? And then I hit on the idea of doing a home video. And then where it was a little girl's birthday party in a cabin in the woods, and then the shit hits a fan, and he just keeps a camera running, recording the whole thing. So it was all done in one take.
As a filmmaker would do.
Of course, absolutely. Put that damn camera down. Hold on, I got to get my close-up. So that was it. It was more or less a gimmick in order to get me to check that off as my first film done before I'm 25. So everything that went beyond that was completely unscripted, unplanned, and it included getting a distribution deal where the distribution company burned to the ground, literally.
Really?
Yeah, so I lost my main master and all my artwork.
Oh my God.
And I thought, well, that's the film god saying, wow, that was a piece of shit. We're going to take care of that and wipe it off the planet.
You lost your master in a fire?
Yeah. Yeah.
The aliens beamed their little death ray there. Like, no.
See, you just started 3 new conspiracy theories on my ass. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. They're like, we can't let this guy prove our existence.
Yeah. So I thought that was it. And then I get a call 5 years later from this guy saying, hey, do you know anything about this found footage? And I go, what footage? And he says, his family's getting abducted. We're trying to find out who owns the rights.
Wait, they found your found footage film?
Yeah, well, listen to this. So
It's like actually found footage.
apparently, the distributor, he sent out some advanced screeners to some mom and pop video stores. And someone much more clever than I edited off the credits and injected it into the UFO community. Well, for half a decade it swirled and ended up at the International UFO Congress Convention, which, excuse me, is the mothership of all UFO conventions. It's the biggest one.
But
See, now we're back to drumming.
I know,
By the
right?
way, the reason why drummers and filmmakers, why it makes sense is that filmmakers have to be coordinated, do all these different things. And so it's a perfect instrument, I think, for us.
Thank you. Thank you for answering that question for me.
Done. So basically, it brought the house down. A lieutenant colonel with 40 years Air Force intelligence experience claimed it was authentic. And so everyone, including Unsolved Mysteries and Hard Copy and a show called Encounters, was like, we want to feature this show. And just to give you an idea of how the UFO community and some of the bad characters in it operate, I said, well, Unsolved Mysteries is out, because he was trying to hook me up with one of these shows to be on it and feature the film. And the guy said to me, no, not necessarily. And I said, well, it's called Unsolved, not Solved Mysteries, right? He's like, okay. So anyway, I went on national TV on this Fox show called Encounters and debunked my own film. Wow. And then that led to a couple years later making a remake for Paramount TV called Alien Abduction Incident Lake County, which came out about a year and a half before Blair Witch Project. Crazy story there. We got fired from it because we came back.
Okay, so there was a fire and a firing.
And a firing, yeah. And the reason why is that everyone, when we were up in Vancouver with the guys from the X-Files doing the Ship and Aliens, everyone at UPN, United Paramount Network, got fired. So when we came back, they went, what the fuck did you guys do? They let you guys go off to shoot a digital tape movie? What is that? With no-name actors, 20-minute takes. Thank God we're here to save the network. So they cut it down to an hour, and they release it, and it gets them the highest ratings for Tuesday prime time.
Wow.
They put more footage in, it gets even better ratings, and they say, this will never be on this goddamn network again. And then Blair Witch comes out a year later, and they're like, oh shit, maybe these guys weren't so nuts.
We had something that we didn't know we had.
Right.
It's always the studio execs.
Always, overthinking. But anyway, so that kind of got me into it, and so to answer, his question, which I took way too long to do, it had its own energy, and I felt like I've been kind of dragged along, and I'm grateful that everything that was looked upon as being crappy about my film, where actors are talking over each other, and it's rough and raw, is actually looked upon as being something that is an acceptable form of storytelling now. And by the way, the whole genre, I think what has been done with it is fantastic, and where it's been, where it's gone in different directions and stuff and everything. So I think it's here to stay.
Do you think, though, it can be made with modern technology? Like if it was a guy with an iPhone?
Yeah. Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah.
It's probably being shot right now.
Right now, with a guy with an iPhone.
Yeah. A few people, or a woman with an iPhone.
Or whoever with an iPhone.
Or an alien.
Or an alien with an iPhone. Actually, I'd love to see that. An alien finds an iPhone and is like, this is what Earth is. And it's like Instagram.
Here's a selfie.
Yeah, here's a selfie. Now, as always, my guest gets to bring their topic to the mic. So, Dean, why don't you tell us what your topic is and why you decided to choose it?
All right. So my topic, maybe it's debatable. I don't think it is. I consider the greatest cinematic movie of all time. And that is Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Ooh. Big surprise.
I know, right?
But before we get into the topic, it's time for a commercial break. Hey everyone, filmmaker Dean Alioto here. Gala offered me 1 minute to plug my new documentary, The Alien Perspective, that just dropped on Apple TV and Amazon. But I hate self-promotion, like seriously. So I'm going to have my girlfriend Allie do it.
7 years ago, Dean got an idea for a UFO science documentary that he'd never seen before. One told not just from the human's perspective, but from the point of view of those possibly visiting our planet. He madly pursued and recruited experts from NASA, Oxford, Francis Space Agency, as well as world-renowned scientists like Michio Kaku and Dr. Nick Bostrom, the creator of the simulated reality hypothesis, all to show us exactly why beings from another world, dimension, or time would engage with mankind. Since Dean's also a huge fan of animation, he got Arvid Steen, the animation director of the Oscar-winning film Searching for Sugarman, to recreate the most credible UFO cases of all time. The alien perspective is for believers, skeptics, and everyone in between. And that's the end of this plug.
Hope you dig The Alien Perspective on Apple and Amazon now. Thanks. Good job, babe.
Thanks.
Hey, thanks so much for being a loyal listener. If you want to keep up with me off mic, make sure to follow me on Instagram at Gala Avery.
And we're back.
You heard it here. We are going to be talking about Close Encounters of the Third Kind. I have 30 minutes on the clock and our time starts now. Oh my God, you actually have, is that a 30-minute?
That is a 30-minute
Oh my God,
hourglass.
I actually have an hourglass. This is amazing. I need one of these. Why don't I have one? Wow, you've already made me jealous. I feel like I'm going to lose my entire discussion right now. But I want to ask you, so when did you first see Close Encounters of the Third Kind?
So I saw it when it came out. And what's really weird is that at the time it came out, I was protective of another movie, another sci-fi movie, which was Star Wars. And I thought, oh, what's this other sci-fi movie coming out?
Yeah, how can anything be as good as Star Wars?
Yeah. And then I walked in and saw the film, and I was not prepared for this spiritual experience that Close Encounters was. And that, to me, if I had to pick one word, I would say it's spiritual. It blew me away. That's when I first started linking filmmakers with the film, because I knew he had done Jaws. And I also remember Duel, his TV movie that got released as a feature.
Before we got on the mic, you and I kind of talked about a little bit how people there are some movies that like help link you to filmmakers, but there are also some movies that actually kind of spark that filmmaking in you. Like you mentioned E.T. before we started talking.
Yeah.
And so it's fascinating to me. How old were you when you saw Close Encounters, you think?
Let's see, I would have been, this is 1977. So I was born when the Beatles invaded America. So that would be 64. So what is that, 12?
Yeah, you were about 12 years old. I probably was around the
12 or
same
13.
age when my dad showed me Close Encounters of the Third Kind. But you know what? I did not like it when I first saw it.
Okay, let's just unplug this
I know
podcast right now. What the hell?
I did rewatch it. Don't worry. I did rewatch it since then. But I remember when I first saw it, I was like, I couldn't understand some of it. I think it's because it is like this kind of spiritual, esoteric view of aliens. And as I mentioned, and I mention all the time, I grew up watching Star Trek. It's very like, even though Star Trek is Shakespearean, it's very like kind of straightforward. Like here's the aliens and here's this. And you do learn big themes in it. But Close Encounters is kind of its own ballgame.
Yeah, why I call it the most cinematic movie of all time is you can look, one could argue and say, oh, no, 2001 Space Odyssey. And I go, yeah, no. As great as Douglas Trumbull was and his creation of all the effects and everything, and definitely it was, esoteric up the wazoo. What was amazing about Close Encounters is that basically it breaks all the rules. And I've tried to replicate this. In fact, I wrote a sequel.
Oh, did you really?
To Close Encounters.
Did you really?
Last year when I had COVID.
You did?
Yeah. I haven't told anyone this, but I wrote a sequel to Close Encounters, and it was a way to. I wrote it for two reasons, or three reasons. One is I had COVID, I needed something to do. But the second one is I know this movie so well that there were a lot of things that Spielberg didn't like about the film.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He said I would never make that film today because I have kids. And the film, his character leaves his family.
Because when I was a kid, that was my big problem with it. Because I love my dad so much, and the thought, and I also love aliens so much. So it's like the thought of your father choosing to leave and go be with the aliens instead of you really upset me. And it even upset me on my second viewing of the movie. Like, I was upset the other day when I rewatched it.
Understandably so. But Spielberg himself said in an interview that out of all the films, he couldn't see doing a sequel to Jaws, even though they ended up making several. But he could see doing it to Close Encounters at the time. And again, he wasn't registering, locking into that. Well, I will go with Richard Dreyfuss's explanation, because I, as a kid, saw that and knew that it wasn't him. He didn't make that choice. When he's at the railroad crossing and the light comes down and hits him, he literally jolts. And a lot of people who, and maybe because I've done these documentaries on recently on UFOs and aliens, it is something that people talk about being implanted.
Yeah, and even the French scientist at the end says like, "Oh, I envy you. Like, you've been chosen."
Yeah.
Like, you're not really choosing. You've been chosen.
You've been chosen, and he's not doing the mashed potatoes. He's not building the real life sculpture of Devil's Tower in his living room before he gets hit by that light.
No.
So he is kind of impregnated, if you will, with this obsessive, this thing that he cannot control. And so his family tries to pull him out, but he's also not a good fit for this planet in a way.
Yeah, and also I suppose like the mother who gets her child back, because I do tear up at that moment when it's like the people are coming out and then all of a sudden her little boy runs out and she sees him and it's so lucky that they get to be reunited. She was not really touched by the light in the same way that he was. Like, she was not implanted with that feeling of like, I have to go do something.
Well, she was.
But
she went all the way there, but also it was mostly to get her kid back.
It was mostly her kid back.
Fair point.
That's like my question, because like if they were both implanted with this light, why is he the only one that like kind of keeps going and actually out of all of the people that trek there? Because there are quite a few like in the helicopter and they're like, take your masks off, let's go. Why is it only him that gets on the ship?
Okay, good question. So here's this is my analysis.
No, I love this because it's actually going to help me understand and appreciate the movie better, I think.
Okay, cool. So everyone was chosen for a certain reason. And she was adjacent to that. Her son was chosen for some reason. And if you look at the way that the son is operating, this childlike curiosity, toys, he's looking at the creatures. So does Roy Neary, Richard Dreyfuss's character.
He's playing with the trains.
Exactly. And so it's a part of him that transcends that goes into the root of who he is. Whereas the mother, she's affected with it, but not to the degree that he is. Her purpose is to get her son back, but to also experience that, which I actually address in the sequel.
Oh, it's amazing.
And so...
What is the sequel? Can I ask? Or is it like under lock and key?
No, well, first of all, I don't know the rights. So
well,
he can
I know,
do
but still,
whatever it is.
An idea is an idea.
But I will just say that someone comes back.
Okay, someone,
and it involves a relationship between his son and him, and so I kind of get choked up.
Yeah,
because it's this relationship between his son who feels abandoned and him.
Wow.
And so you address that, and so that I kind of wanted, cathartic wise, I wanted to address it as well. I mean, we've all had broken families and stuff we come from.
Yeah.
My father, moved away, the whole deal. And so it was kind of the same thing where I was relating to that. And it took me a while to get to that place because first, like you, I was kind of like, wow, he left his family to a degree. But I was like, there's something bigger calling him that transcends his life. It transcends mankind. And so you have to kind of look at it from a macro
Which
version.
Son is it? Is it the oldest son that he kind of is like trying to like do the fractions?
He's the one who
with
slams
him?
the door when
and
he's
the one
crying.
Who's like trying to do fractions, and he's like, not now. Like I'm like,
Yes.
and like let's do it through the trains. Okay, confession time.
Yeah.
You might not know this about me, but other people do. I love trains. I really love trains, and I love train crashes and like train collisions. So in Close Encounters, like when he's like, okay, we're gonna crash the model train, I was like, yeah, crash it. But there's so many train things in this movie. Like he is on the train tracks.
Yep.
And then also I think they're gonna do the nerve gas, like the fake nerve gas, from a train collision or like a train crash.
Well, they said that there was a train crash where this toxin was released and it was killing anthrax, I think it was, and that cleared out that area. I bring the train back,
Oh, so bring the
motif
train
back.
Well, it's so funny because, okay, so the train thing, and then when they're pulling him away,
Yeah.
they ask him when his birthday is, and his birthday is December 4th. That's my birthday. It's also Mick Garris's
Mick Garris's birthday.
He and I
Oh.
are born same day and same
Right.
hospital, too. So it's my Mick and my connection, like our homie connection. But when I saw that, I was like, oh my God. Like, he has the same birthday as me, and like he's like obsessed with this thing that I really like, and I was like, okay, like there's something, but I wonder like why he chose December 4th for the day, because I know like there are no mistakes when it comes, or maybe there are. Maybe you just pick a
Well,
day.
Spielberg
but-
is I used to know this. He's a Sagittarius or a Capricorn.
So if he's a Sagittarius, that's like December 4th.
I think he's a Sagittarius.
Yeah, so he wanted a Sagittarius character.
Yeah, that was probably it. And, you know, it's the Peter Pan syndrome,
Yeah.
you know, as well going on there. But it's that is a component, but I kind of was able to reconcile that, and I really drilled down on it in the sequel, and then transcend it in the healing, etc.
Have you considered like writing this into like a novelization?
Yeah, I don't know if I've got the right. I mean, sometimes
But I think, I don't know, you might be able to like a fan, like,
I'm gonna have to talk to a lawyer
yeah,
about that. I
you
would
might
love.
be able to.
I would love to do that. Sometimes I'll do this as even as an exercise. I wrote a Beatles biopic.
Wow.
That David Wild, who's a contributing editor at Rolling Stone magazine, he said to me beforehand, "It'll never fucking work, dude. They did too much." And I said, I'm not doing it for that. I'm doing it because I'm having a midlife crisis,
Because I feel like it.
and I feel like it. And I want to see
feel
how
like it.
4, kids from the same neighborhood transcended music, changed music as we know it. And so he was right. I was at 172 pages, and I just gotten to right before Sgt. Pepper.
Oh my God.
And
Right
so
before.
so I had to break it up into 2 movies. And so the first movie is to be shot black and white, like A Hard Day's Night,
Yeah.
and handheld, and then the second half is done in flashbacks in Technicolor, with Sgt. Pepper, and we're doing flashbacks through their last, through the making of Let It Be. Anyway, but Sam Mendes is now doing 4 versions
Yeah,
from
but
each of the Beatles
there can
POVs, so
always be
I don't have to worry
another.
about having to make that as much as I would love to.
I mean, maybe one day though, there can always be another is the thing. Like when you see all these like historical biopics, there's always like one vampire movie that circles like every year and one
Yeah.
Nosferatu film. It's
Yeah.
like, just give it time. It'll come back around. That's,
Exactly.
or novelize it.
Or
Put it as a
novelize it.
novelization.
Or do a podcast.
Or do a podcast. do like this, like people do like play podcasts now. They do scripted podcasts.
Oh, it's great. Yeah,
it's
the Battersea, there's one called the Battersea Ghost that Blumhouse is doing. They've got the rights to.
Mm-hmm.
That was a really successful UK podcast. But yeah, so the reason why I say it's the most cinematic film of all time is literally the whole movie is this build-up to revealing these, the intelligent life form. Whereas in 2001 Space Odyssey, you see the monolith. That's it. That's the intelligence. And so if this would be done today, it would be no. At the end of the first act, we got to see those aliens, man. You can't wait until the end of the film.
Yeah, and the very first alien that kind of shows itself is kind of scary looking with like the long spindly arms.
Yeah.
And then all the little cute ones come out and it's like, okay, like is their form actually the scary spindly one? And are they like making themselves look all cute for our enjoyment? Or
Well,
like
Carlo Rambaldi, who did those designs, also would go on to do E.T. Well, it's taken from J. Allen Hynek, who his book called Close Encounters of the Third Kind, which broke down all the different kinds of encounters. Spielberg co-opted for the film, and it wasn't like he took that and then went and wrote the script. He'd already been working on it for a long time and everything, and then got the title and everything and brought him on as a consultant. He also has a cameo in the film. But it was very much what was reported, where there were taller aliens, gray aliens, and there were shorter ones. And so at some point, you also want to kind of branch off and have it have some license.
yeah, to
you know.
do what you feel like doing as a filmmaker.
Yeah, but it's cinematic because, and I was just thinking about this the other day. I watched The Third Man, and I realized this is almost a sci-fi version of The Third Man,
Oh yeah.
right? Because you're talking about this enigmatic character that the audience isn't going to meet, but they keep hearing about him, which would be the other protagonists, which are the aliens. And the question is it real or not?
The Third Man, like the black and white, like the Third Man.
Yeah.
That one, yeah.
Yeah. Orson Welles.
Orson Welles. Well, it's so funny because also like, I really love The Fourth Man, like Paul Verhoeven's The
Oh,
Fourth
yeah,
Man.
yeah.
I feel like it's like a remake. I put that in air
Sure.
quotes of The Third Man, but
Yeah.
like I like this idea that like it's a very classic story that has been transcended into a different genre.
Yeah.
And you do have these archetypes of like, who are you meeting and who is this person you've been searching for? I also just like wonder when I was watching it, like the significance, like he does it at the Devil's like mountain, like
Yeah.
specifically that. And like,
Yeah.
I know that's like the very first landmark that like was declared national, whatever,
Yes.
but the Devil's part of it like
Yeah.
makes me scratch my head. Cause it's like for people,
It wasn't originally called Devil's Tower.
it wasn't.
No.
What was it
It was
originally?
called, I think it was called Bear's Cabin or Bear's something, but that was the
Yeah.
Native American name for it. Then it got renamed.
Then it got renamed. It's just interesting to me because I feel like people kind of divide belief systems into like, oh, there are people that believe in science and there are people that believe in faith. And I don't think it's that black and white. I think it's like all different shades of
Yeah.
people intermingling and whatever. But to have it be called like the Devil's Tower or whatever it's called, it's like, okay, it's a little scary. Like,
Yeah, well, thanks. You can thank Joe Alves
Yeah.
for that, since he found it and sent it to Spielberg, and Spielberg was like, "Yeah, that's it. That's
that
the
big
landmark."
that big monolith,
Because it
basically.
wasn't going to be there originally, and so it's funny how whenever you make a film, the film has its own karma, and sometimes the karma is good. Sometimes you're channeling the muse, and the muse is going, "Oh, we're going to have fun." And other times you fight it and you try to control it, and then it just goes to hell in a handbasket. This was like divine. Something was going on, the way it was all coming together. Again, who are the bad guys? There's no bad guys in this film.
There are no bad guys in the film because even like the scientists who I feel like in a movie could be seen as like, oh, they're the bad guys or against the aliens or,
government.
whatever, or the government. They're all really happy to be there. And they're all really happy to be
Yeah.
talking with the aliens. Like the scene with the music. I told you I was going to bring up Moonraker.
Yeah.
The door tone in Moonraker to unlock the door is the Close Encounters theme.
Right.
And apparently Spielberg really wanted to make a Bond film, and they wouldn't let him. So he went and made Close Encounters. That's like this. That's like the
Yes
loose.
and no.
I know. I was gonna say that's like the loose rumor.
Yeah, you're close. At least from what I've heard.
Yeah,
but
share with
but
me.
the truth is, it's pliable. So what I heard was when Spielberg and Lucas had made their films and they went off to Hawaii, which has become this ritual where they would go and just chill and do a vacation after their films. George said to him, "Hey, Stephen, what do you want to do next?" He goes, "Well, I'd really love to do a Bond film, but I can't get a meeting. I can't, they won't let me hire."
I'm not. Yeah.
And Lucas goes, "Oh, I got something better. It's called Indiana Jones and the blah, blah, blah." And so he pitched him basically Raiders of the Lost Ark. And Spielberg's like, "Oh my God, yes.
And I'm so glad that he went and did that because
Oh my
those
God.
movies are like.
Hell yeah."
And I love Harrison Ford. I love him. I'm like, I'm in love with Harrison Ford right now. So who can blame me?
Yeah, doesn't age.
But when they're talking with the aliens and they have like the text tone, who is the one operating the human side? Is it like a computer algorithm that they've kind of programmed? Because at one point they're like, what are we even saying to each other?
Yeah. So all that stuff will get deciphered later, is my theory on that, the belief. I mean, they do have a little bit of a code book that they're using, that Lacombe's character is developing from sign language to, however they were getting
Because
these signals
they
from
do
them.
the sign language in
Yeah.
the end.
But I think it was either, maybe it was Lipton from the Actors Studio who said that where it might have come symbolically was Spielberg's parents fighting back and forth. We have the higher tones like the mother and then the deeper tones going back and forth to the point that something gets broken, which is the shattering of one of those cubicles up there. So I think that's going to be played back later on. And again, I get a chance to address this in the sequel.
I love this. The sequel needs to be shown to the world now. Like, you can't just be teasing it. It's like, oh, I have a secret and I can't share it with you, but I know all the answers. It's like, come on. Well, it's funny though, because it's like, I always wondered at this, because the ending is like the best part of the movie
God.
for sure. It's like, it's the most satisfying. It's like pretty much all your questions get answered. I won't say all.
Yeah.
But my thing was also like when they're talking, because it feels like they are talking back and forth, and the guy says like, I don't know what even we're saying to each other. How do they know that they're gonna like swap people? Because they give them all the people they've abducted, and they give them back, and then they choose to parade out like all the astronauts, like take your pick, take our people.
Yeah.
Like why and how?
All right. So again, this is all interpretive, right?
Yeah.
So my feeling is that there was some operation that was being conducted that started from the early 1900s, and they were done with that. And so these people were coming back. Barry Guffey, the kid being abducted, maybe there was something they wanted from him one last little bit. I think he might have been last patient zero,
Yeah.
you know, the opposite of patient zero, that the last one. So I think it was that they were returning them, that had been done. And so when they offered all these other people up, where they hand picked them, it's kind of like this beauty contest. And it's like beauty isn't judged on these guys and what they bring to it. It's judged on something deeper, something spiritual. And his connection with them, they were like one of them, whether he was reincarnated here from their planet, whatever. But he was there for the right reason. None of those people that the government lined up and had in those red,
really
flight
cool,
suits
like
with
really
the
cool
with
orange,
the
red.
and the shades and everything. None of them were drawing pictures of Devil's Tower. None of them were building that.
None of them were like literally throwing their entire life away on Earth.
Yeah, they weren't touched. So he was chosen, like Francois Truffaut's
And
character.
they really only choose, do they just take him back? Really? Like
That
they
was
don't
it.
take anyone else. They
No.
just take him. They're like, okay, we got what we wanted. We're
Yeah,
gonna
and
go.
so the question is, where does he go? And because time is relative, when
Yeah.
does he can come back and
Also, and I love the moment when the little boy is like crying and he says bye-bye. Because it's
Yeah.
like he's actually kind of sad.
Yeah.
That the aliens are going. Like he had a good time.
because he doesn't have fear around
No,
it.
he had a good time.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because the older we get, the less intelligent. This is actually been quantified where kids, if you do an IQ test with a child, say like 5 or 7 years old, their IQ is higher. And as they get older, because of the lack of imagination and looking at problem solving from any point of view, not referencing something that is hard data, it starts to shrink. And so the fact is, Gary wasn't scared of that. The little child wasn't scared. Barry wasn't. And either was Dreyfus.
No,
it
he
was just like a
wasn't.
moth to the light.
To the flame, yeah.
Yeah.
He just had to do it. I find it so fascinating. Also, the two movies that you've mentioned, that like the one that connected you to the director and the one that connected you to like wanting to make movies, are both alien movies.
I know. Everyone's going to think, oh, that guy's an alien wacko.
Well, no, but like
Give me proof. I've never seen an alien. My mother has, or not an alien, but a UFO. My mother saw a craft in the 70s go into the water. That's as close as I've gotten. That's why I'm interested in this, because I want to see and I have to recreate it.
I know I feel like people that like they want to believe, they oftentimes are like the ones that seek it out or make the art about it because they want to like prove it almost in a weird way,
Yeah.
like this is. When you were doing the alien design for the Mcpherson tape, did you like take the same alien kind of design? Because they kind of do have that same shape. And I know it's a very classic, iconic shape of like the little head. And
By the time I did that in 88, it had been folded into
standard.
the zeitgeist. Yeah. So I had always been interested in Devil's Triangle and Bermuda Triangle and Bigfoot and all that stuff. And so for me, it was working off of drawings. I actually showed it to Bill Bowes, who was the production designer, who had a big budget of $750 to do a ship and 3 aliens.
wow, and he did a lot with 750.
He's a badass. Yeah. He went on to do Tim Burton movies and Fantastic Four production designer. Fantastic. Anyway, so it was taken from that amalgamation of reported, what witnesses reported. And so I did, though, Nick, for sure, hiring young girls whose bodies were androgynous. So you couldn't tell what sex they were and have them dress. In my version, they're all dressed in black because that's what
Yeah.
was reported with the helmets. It's funny, when we were shooting, they couldn't see because we were shooting nighttime, so they were almost bumping into each other. So we barely got the shot. But yeah, I mean, E.T. affected me when I had dropped out of high school because I was just disenchanted with everything and being dyslexic. It was like, this isn't fun. I know I want to do something with films because it's a visual form. And then I saw E.T. and I was the fucked up middle child who dreamed of sci-fi aliens and stuff. And my mother raised us 3 boys. And so it was really going to see that film. And I saw a sneak preview of that film. And I came home and because I was so touched by it because it took the broken family and it celebrated it.
Yeah.
And it had, because I always felt coming from a broken home, we were tighter than your average family because of that, because there was a survival
Because you have
thing.
to come together.
Yes. And so it was one for all and all for one. And so I saw a film and I came home and I told my mother, I said, I'm going to be a filmmaker. That's it. And been chasing that drug ever since. And no one's done an intervention on me yet, so I still continue freebasing.
You're fine. You're
filmmaking.
fine. Well, it's funny that you say that though, because it's like in the Mcpherson tape, it is the 3 brothers and the mother.
Yes.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
is like basically like your family, as if your family was the one and you behind the camera.
It is. It is.
It's
Yeah.
like it's interesting. I just find it like the influences that we get when we're children from movies, and then
Oh,
we
yeah.
carry them with us, and then also folding our life into it.
It's embedded in our creative DNA.
It is for sure. The other alien movie that I really, really love is Starman.
Oh yeah,
And when
which is
which
basically kind of ET in a way.
it's like his response, to his thing with the thing,
Yeah.
because when the thing came out,
So his
they were
brother from another planet.
yeah.
Yeah.
All the movies, Earth Girls are easy. But no, like when the thing came out, and then people were really mad because E.T. had come out the same year, and they're like, how dare you do that to the alien? And so he made Starman. I love Starman. I feel like Starman has a little
Underrated.
it's underrated, and it has a little bit of the Close Encounters childlike quality.
Yeah.
To like because the alien in Starman has like very like, I want to almost say naive in a way.
Oh my God, and the theme music.
And the theme music, just everything
Holy
is
cow.
so good. But like the moment with the toys in the beginning of Close Encounters reminded me for some reason of Starman. I was like, oh yeah, it's just that kind of alien, like that
Yeah.
kind of fun alien.
Yeah. Well, the thing is with sci-fi, aliens can be anything. I mean, if you're going to look into the phenomenon, if you will, they could come from the future, would make more sense, because why do they look so much like us? That people report this, if this is actually happening. Why do they look so much like us, where they're bipedal? Are they from, another dimension, whatever?
Yeah, or did they create us, and have they come
Or
back
did they
to kind of
create
like
us?
look at us and say like, oh,
And
you're
go,
doing
wow,
pretty
we
good.
failed. That's
Or-
a first pancake. Let's chuck this.
Or you're doing it kind of interesting this time. Keep
Yeah.
going. Let's see
Yeah.
where this goes.
Yeah.
I don't know. Within failure, there's always the opportunity to grow.
Right. Well, the one thing that also greatly affected me is that when I saw Close Encounters, I started paying attention to the art form. I started paying attention to the craft. There is no one who is a better blocker of action, of actors and camera on the planet. It just he is. There's no one that comes close.
And also his work with children is just beyond like
Yeah.
what anyone I think has done since, personally at least.
Yeah, well, it's
just-
interesting because if you see, as an example, if you see George Roy Hill's Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, look at the blocking of that film, especially when they're going up and they're talking to the guy Cogburn, who's inside inside the train.
Yeah.
Train theme again. He's talking to him, and the camera's underneath the train looking out, and the staggering of them is just beautiful. I don't get how Spielberg does this, and I've tried to reverse engineer it my whole career. But that first scene in Close Encounters is epic. It's one of the best first opening scenes of all time. Why is it great? Because first of all, out of the cloud, which becomes a motif throughout the whole, out of the dust cloud comes these lights. And then these cars come up, and what happens is you get the architecture of we're tracking with them along this fence, which is kind of like in Jaws. You've got that fence theme at the beginning. And they go up, and we're seeing that there's different languages being spoken. 3 different languages. So now we know, it's an international story, whatever's going on here. And then we are revealing the first mystery, which is these planes that are here.
Why are they here?
Why are they here?
I also love that it says present day, because I thought, okay, if you're watching
Right.
it right now, this could be present day.
Yeah.
And I found it a very interesting choice to use, like whenever people use the word present day, because it's just like, okay, well, that in 2024, if I'm watching a movie and it says present day, okay, that could be 2024.
Yeah. And why do you need to do that? But we're going to be talking about the past. The movie's saying we're going to be dealing with the past and the present. And so when he walks out and he's first looking at all these planes, and we're staggered up and we see the guys who are going to check the serial numbers, I mean, it's just poetry. It's beautiful. I watch it with the sound off all the time.
And also the fact that the character who can translate, he's a map maker, and he gets just diminished into just a translator.
Yeah.
Like that's
Until
all
he has his
until he
moment.
has his moment where he's like, it's longitude and latitude.
Yeah.
Like in my life before I was a translator.
Oh my,
I
it's
used
a
to
big
make
mic
maps.
drop. It's like, boom, mic drop, bitch, boom. Yeah. And then the second scene that blows me away, and we're not even going to talk about the climax and everything else, is the air traffic control scene.
You know what? I was thinking about that too, because the moment also, it's so good, but the ending thesis of that is, would you like to make a report? Nope. No, thank you. Like, I'm okay not getting involved.
And I wouldn't know what to report.
Yeah.
So this is a moment where we're actually seeing what's going on, interacting with these beings, right? It's the first time that we really get a sense of that. And it's off camera. It is looking at a radar screen, but we feel like we're there. And the camera is dollying and tracking, then it repeats its dolly move as more people are coming in and taking a look, and it becomes his focus, and people are crowded around, and they're all talking over each other. And the way in which it's calm, he's not going, oh my God. And the guy who says it, I wrote his name down. He's fantastic. Who is doing the, what is his name? Roy E. Richards.
Roy E. Richards.
Yeah, now he plays Ares. He's the voice of Ares. I looked him up, and he may be a real pilot because the way that his disaffected voice and kind of calm sounded like a real pilot. But the guy who what is his name? It is Richard L. Hawkins. He's the guy who's the black operator.
Yeah.
And he is flawless. And so we're following all this, and then at the end, I mean, it's brilliant because your imagination, you're bringing your imagination, it is working overtime.
It also proves to you the aliens are not hostile, because if they were, they would have attacked this place, the ship and the plane, because there's that moment of silence and you don't know if he's been attacked or not.
Yeah.
And you're kind of waiting, like, what kind of aliens are these? And
But they're
like,
testing.
No. They're testing,
They're testing, and they want to get up close and take a look at the planes and everything else. Yeah, just the way that is choreographed and done, and it's all from the same camera axle, is just like insane. And just,
It's also just like, as you said, excellent filmmaking. The blocking of all the characters coming in to be interested, and you see it
filling the frame, talking over each other, the staggering of that. I mean, literally, it's like I wish more filmmakers would look at that and kind of consider that there's ways that you can tell a story where you place the actors. Oh, wow. Oh, look at that.
I know.
The hourglass.
I want one of these hourglasses now. I think it's like a great tool. I'm going back in time. Woo.
If my girlfriend Allie didn't give me that last week for our 10th anniversary,
Really?
I would give it to you.
Oh my God. Happy 10th anniversary.
Thank
That's
you.
amazing.
Yeah.
So that's all the time that we have for today. But Dean, is there any final thought that you'd like to share with the audience?
My final thought is continue being interested in how things get made, and movies and music and everything else. I guess I should do a little bit of plugging, which is I've got this new film, The Last Podcast, which should be coming out next year.
So in 2025.
2025. And then coming out, hopefully at the end of this year, is a science documentary called The Alien Experience, which is a 3-part. It's a monster project shot over six years.
With tons and tons of actual interviews.
New interviews, also with professors from Harvard and just tons of different colleges and we start at NASA.
That's amazing.
And we go to SETI and everything else, 66 interviews.
I cannot wait to see this. Honestly, I love documentaries, and I love alien documentaries, because I've never experienced an alien encounter, but there is that part of me that believes no matter what. And I love hearing from people that just know. It's not even a belief, it's a knowledge that it is real.
Well, you can't fake PTSD. And
No.
the people who have reported this and having these interactions, they suffer. I mean, Dr. John Mack talked all about that you can't, it's ontological shock where you see something that shouldn't exist. I always like to say, imagine you're out on your porch. And all of a sudden, a chimpanzee comes around the corner. Seeing that out of context would blow your mind. I mean, it would be like, what the hell's going on? Now imagine something coming around that should not exist.
That you've never seen before. You can't acknowledge what it is. It's just
Yeah. And
shocking.
So I always leave the door open to any possibilities that it could happen. And so in the meantime, I want to, kind of swim in that and have fun with it and present it in a way that's either, fictional or maybe testimony of people who claim to have had this. So that one's coming out. There's going to be 3 movies. The first one is, again, should be coming out at the end of 2024.
Yay, woo. Thank you so much to my guest, Dean Alioto, for coming onto the show. If you'd like to keep up with Dean, you can do so on his website, deanaliotodirector.com, or on his Instagram at Dean Alioto. I'm Gala Avery, and this has been The Gala Show. Into the mic, would you say for me? But before we get into the topic, it's time for a commercial break.
Got it.
The Gala Show is brought to you by Avery.com. This episode was executive produced by Roger Avery and produced by Gala Avery. Music composed by Andy Milburn. As always, I'm your host, Gala Avery. Copyright 2024, all rights reserved. Despite me sharing the same last name with this charity, I don't have any affiliation with it, besides the fact that the issue is very near and dear to my heart. Did you know that in the United States, 2.7 million children currently have a parent in prison, and it's estimated that 10 million children have experienced parental incarceration at some point in their lives? I was one of these kids, and as an adult, I am really grateful to be able to give back to Project Avery. Their mission is to build leadership from within by supporting community through programs such as mentoring and outdoor education, and also to remove the stigma surrounding having a parent that's incarcerated. You don't have to feel alone. If you know a kid who could use these resources or would like to donate money or time to the charity, please go to Project Avery, that's AVARY.org, to check out what this amazing charity is all about. Again, that's projectavery.org. Thank you guys from the bottom of my heart.